I'm Bruce Buchanan, and today I'm working on a few residential windows that I'm restoring. These are the frames for them. They're three diamond pane windows from a house in Shaker Heights that after 100 years the windows are failing. The lead joints were breaking and the windows are starting to sag and come away from their support bars. So I took them out of their frames, out of these awesome frames that they're in. They're hinged casement windows, so these big windows would, swing open. So those windows actually got a lot of abuse just from being slammed around and all that. I mean, it's a wonder that they needed help only after 100 years. So here's one of the windows that I've taken apart. You can see. Let's get that out of the way. I took the whole window apart and removed all the lead, and I'm going to use all the same glass again. There were a few breaks in the window that I'm going to recut as I go along. Here I've got the crayon rubbings of the original windows. So it's you just lay a paper over and take a rubbing with the crayon, and then you end up with a map of how to take the window apart and keep track of the pieces, and then a map for putting it back together. So here I've got all of the pieces taken apart and laid out on the rubbing so that I can use the exact same pieces in the exact same places that they were. This particular window is cut really well, so all of the diamonds really are true to each other. Sometimes you'll have little variations and it really matters to keep the pieces where they need to be. There were some breaks in this window, so I've got them marked, and I will recut those from new glass when I rebuild the window. Okay, so at this point I've rebuilt the window, and it's all just held together by tension with the glazing nails. And I'll go in, and I've already gone and kind of lined up everything as well as it can be lined up, so that when it gets soldered, it's as perfect as it's going to be. Kind of really try to make sure all the lines are true and straight. And then once I've got all that straightened out, I apply Flux to each of the solder joints, which is it cleans the joint and it makes the solder adhere to the lead where I want it to be soldered together. The Flux prepares the joint for being soldered. Some people say that it cleans the metal. I think there's something to do with it actually being a temperature bridge for the two metals to bond together. You see, the lead has one melting point, and the solder has a lot of tin in it, and it has a different melting point. So you actually want to get them so that they adhere to each other. So I think that's what the Flux does. It helps them attach. Then here I'm just going to go and I'm going to solder all of the solder joints. And while I'm doing this, I'm just trying to make sure that it's making a nice, just a pretty joint. I want it to connect to every bit of the lead I need it to connect to. So I'm soldering these little joints, and I'm kind of pulling the solder in the direction I want it to go. A lot of people try to put it on like they're painting with it, but actually the soldering iron is the solder is pulled to the heat, so you can actually drag the stuff with it because it wants to go to the heat. Yes, ideally, all the joints are so perfect that everything's really butted into each other. All you're doing is adhering them, putting a thing across them. But sometimes you'll be a little bit short there, the little gap, and you can bridge that gap with the solder, which is actually, because of the tin in it, it's a little stronger than the lead itself. So if the iron's not hot enough, you end up with a cold solder joint, which is, you really want them to look really wet and just flat and puddled into puddled into flatness. If the iron isn't hot enough, you end up picking up the lead and see, now this is too hot, and it'll come into a little peak, and this sharp, nasty little peak. So you want a nice, beautiful, flat, melted out puddle. There's always like one little solder joint that you missed. And then even here, if I missed a solder joint, you know, I've got the iron is already off, so I'll, you know, put a little tape mark just to remind me. Or, you know, if there's a little ugly solder joint, you can put a little mark on it, you know. Come back to that next time. Sweet. So, and then here, actually, keep on going a little bit. I'm going to slide this guy out, you know, press down the edge leads. It helps when you're installing it. Keeps the cement from getting in the outside edges. Although sometimes you want it to get in there. And then here, actually, I'm going to slide it right off the bench. There it goes. Window.